going on? Today we are going to be doing a story time video. I haven't done one of these in a very long time. So what we're going to talk about today is just basically my life story. It's very plain. So, I've always wanted to do a video like this. I see so many story times and so many life stories, and I've just always wanted to do one. I've actually tried before, but have never really been too successful at editing and filming and whatever, all the things that go into making a video. It's just never worked out when I've tried to do this kind of video. Maybe it's a sign saying, don't do that. But this is going to be a pretty lighthearted life story. It's not going to be anything like R-rated or X-rated. It's not going to be anything that is concerning if you're listening with children. It's not going to be anything crazy, that's for sure. I do have a more serious life story video on YouTube. It's no longer on this channel, but it is on my alternate channel. It's not really a backup channel, but I guess it could be considered a backup channel. It's really just another channel for this video and any videos of that sort of nature that I don't want to put on this account. I have moved some of the videos over there. There's also a bunch of short videos that I've never wanted to post on my actual account. They may find their way over on that page. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. I have already put my hair up. It was looking good today. But now it's time to get all this stuff off my face and then do my nighttime skincare routine and talk to you guys about what's life. Okay, so firstly what we're going to do is just take all this stuff off of my face. We're getting unready for going out and ready for bed. So, I don't know why this just felt so soothing. Okay, so I am born and raised in Louisiana, and I absolutely love Louisiana. I had a typical Louisiana upbringing when it comes to outdoor activities, fishing, hunting, camping, doing all those things we did as a family growing up. We did all the typical Louisiana things. I have two siblings. One of my siblings is 14 years older than me, and the other sibling is 5 years younger than me. My older sibling kinda was moved out before my younger sibling came along. So honestly, like, I know I have my big sister, but like, she didn't ever really live in the same house as me until much later. But I love all my siblings. I love my parents. We just all had love for each other, and even though we did not grow up with a lot, we always had the necessities, and we always had a roof over our head. My parents are also still together. So that's just the basic little story. And something that I remember and I cherish greatly is just me and my dad would always go on fishing trips. I mean, like, middle of the night, 3 a.m., waking up, getting prepared, going fishing before the sun even came out. So much fun. We did that for a long time, and fishing is just something that we always like to do together. Let's see. I think I almost got all of this off of my face. Okay, so when I was a young girl, that's loud. When I was a young girl, I guess would consider myself oh, it's getting everywhere. Oh, it's salty. Why is that? Ugh. Okay. There it is. There it is. The makeup that did not get removed with the little makeup wipe. You would think it would have did a little bit more than this, but we are washing to get all of that was left behind. So during my school years, like elementary school is what I'm talking about, I would say I was pretty normal, pretty average, just, you know, normal kid, doing normal kid things. I was in the choir. I don't think we had school plays, now that I'm thinking about it, in elementary, junior, or high school. But I was in choir, which was the only thing that had a stage when I was in elementary school. I wanted to be an actress when I was super young, and it was just something that I thought would be so much fun. It would be so cool. Now we have stuff like Quiet on Set coming out, and you realize maybe you didn't want to do that, actually. Okay. That is better. I don't know why I was aggressively cleaning my face just now. Maybe because I'm talking about elementary school, and that's when I first started cleaning my face. Other than, you know, obviously bathing in the bath. But, back then, when I first started cleaning my face, it was definitely very aggressive. And right now, I feel like I'm being way too aggressive on my face. Okay. Alright, let's get back to where we were. Alright, that was a very aggressive face scrubbing. I don't know why, but, I don't know why I decided to be so aggressive, but let's get back to the story. I was on the honor roll. I had perfect attendance. Oh, a kid's yelling. I just overall enjoyed school. I really did. My dad is a musician, and he even wrote a song about how much I enjoyed school. It was about all his children, but the part that was for me was about how much I enjoyed school, how much I enjoyed teaching people new things. And it was at that point that I was like, hey, I really kind of do like teaching. Maybe that's what I'm going to be when I grow up. That was also around like 5th grade when we started doing like career day, and we started trying to think about what career path we may later go on. So everything, was that a lash? Everything was fine and dandy until I got into junior high school. Junior high school was a whole different ballpark. It was a different ball game entirely. Let's say that elementary school was baseball and I understood the rules, and then junior high was like soccer and I didn't understand the rules. Which I do understand the rules of all of them because I used to play sports. All right. So, before we get to junior high, I did play recreational sports in my entire elementary school years. Like all of elementary school, I did all kinds of recreational sports with the city that I resided in. So then we get to junior high school. Cue the music. Bum, bum, bum. Junior high school was a drag. It really was. I don't know what was like the big deal with junior high school, but it was really hard to transition from elementary school and like doing so well in elementary school and then getting to junior high school and then not really doing very well. Looking back at it now, I think I was just really distracted with everything going on and like meeting new people and friends and all the stuff that really, it's important, but it's not important as your studies. And I think I lacked on some of my studies at first, and I ended up failing the 7th grade. So I repeated the 7th grade. At this time, I was a little boy crazy. There was this guy that it was my best friend's uncle. I know that kind of sounds gross, but he was literally just a few months older than me. So it wasn't like some old creepy uncle, but him and like his little skateboarding friends, I just like really liked all of them. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're all so cool. And I think I just kind of was paying attention to my friends and boys more than my studies. So we're going to 7th grade, part 2 right now. I ended up repeating 7th grade. I was in band during junior high. I played the clarinet. I loved playing the clarinet. And this is also when I started to become a little bit more active in my church and the youth group that they were having and the Wednesday night fellowship, everything that my church was doing. I was just getting really involved in it. And that is when I met someone else that was like a little boyfriend of mine in junior high, and I also started to pay attention to him instead of my studies. Why didn't I learn? But I noticed somebody that I went to school with and also went to church with, and I started to get a crush on this guy as well as some other people that, you know, I just crushed on, whatever. But my second 7th grade year was a failure because guess what? I failed it again. And my parents sent me to summer school. One of the guys that I liked actually had to go to summer school that year also. So that's kind of funny. My best friend's uncle, he was also in summer school that year. I don't remember if we were in the same grade or if he failed his grade or something, but I don't know. So I ended up passing summer school, which I think it's kind of hard to fail. Like you just got to do the work and then it's like, okay, there, you did the work that you missed during the school year. We took away your summer. You did all of the coursework. You're good to go. So then it was 8th grade. 8th grade, I think it was slightly better than my first 2 years of junior high school. But this is when I started to date, like seriously date the guy that I also went to church with. So he was in the church band, and every Wednesday they would get together and they would do fellowship and they would practice, and he was always there with his dad and sometimes his grandpa and sometimes his siblings, and he played an instrument, and my dad was a musician. So I just was always drawn to like musicians for some reason. The other message. No, I do not know what that is. Thank you, Gmail. So the other guy that I had an eye for in like 7th grade, my best friend's uncle, he was also a musician. So yeah. Anyway, so me and the guy from church started getting a lot more serious, and we started hanging out a whole lot, and every waking hour we were basically together, and that actually became pretty toxic. Okay, so I've just realized that I stopped doing my face care. Oh my goodness. Okay. So, we need some other stuff on our face. This one, or this one maybe, the highly rated lash and brow serum. This one says it's for lash, but I mean, I use it for both. I think I'm almost out of this one. But then I saw this one and I was like, ooh, I gotta get it. Gotta get it, but I'm gonna use this one. Okay. Okay, before I start rubbing all kinds of stuff into my face, let me do this lash serum. So I started going to church a whole lot more. I started joining in a lot of the activities that we were doing at church, or what that they had at church, We had puppets, and I mean like the hand puppets, but the ones that you control with sticks to make their arms move, and then you do the I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That it was fun though. It was really fun. I have some pictures somewhere. I don't know if I'll be able to find them and insert them in this video. But we were doing all kinds of things at church, and I was going to church a whole lot because it was really fun. There was a whole lot of cool people there, and I also really liked this boy that went there. So I started getting closer and closer. Our relationship started to grow more and more serious. And then eventually we were what you would call inseparable. We just, hung out all the time. It was actually, looking back at it, pretty toxic because I ended up leaving my parents' house to go stay with him, with his mom and his grandpa and his siblings. And I probably should have stayed my butt at home. But of course, you think you know everything when you're a teenager. Oops. I don't want any hair growing down here. I'm just joking. This isn't the stuff from The Simpsons where it makes your hair grow anywhere. This is lash serum. But, I ended up, against the wishes of my parents, moving out of their house when I was like 15. Now, it wasn't something where I was like, oh, I'm going to get all of my belongings and I'm leaving. It was just kind of like a gradual thing where it was like I would spend the night there, then it would be like 2 or 3 nights, and then my mom would be like, you gotta come home, and then I would come home, and then the next day it was like, all right, see you later, I'm going. So I gradually ended up moving in with my boyfriend at 15. Word of advice: don't move in with your boyfriend at 15. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing, actually? It was probably the worst thing I could have done at that age. So I ended up just kind of not caring about school at all. And I was still attending school, but I just really did not care about it. Like, I thought I cared the least I could possibly care about school in junior high, but somehow in high school it just dwindled to where it was like, I don't care at all. So my 9th grade year, which was our high school, which I transitioned from my middle school to my high school the same year that the high school and middle school were transitioning. It wasn't a middle school, it was a junior high. But my last year there was 8th grade, and the people that I was in 7th grade with the first time, their last year there was 9th grade. It was the same year, but as we moved to high school, they added the 9th grade class to our high school, where the people that I was in the 7th grade the first year, they were going to 10th grade. I was going to 9th grade. But had they kept the schools how they were, to where it was a junior high instead of a middle school, I would have been in junior high again another year. But they changed it, so it was kind of cool, because I was still able to go to high school with my 7th grade class, like the class that I was supposed to be in. Now, the only thing is, instead of being class of 07, now I'm going to be class of 08. But anyways, we made it to high school. So in high school, I think at that time, like, I was not going to church at all anymore. Neither was my boyfriend. And we were just up each other's butts, for lack of better terms. And we would just, if one person couldn't go, the other one wasn't going to go. It was like we were a team package, a package deal, or whatever you want to say. That was, we were doing it together or not at all. So during that time, I also started hanging out with probably what you would call the bad crowd, like the crowd that you don't really want to send your kids with. You don't want your kids hanging out with this crowd, that's for sure. I was hanging out with some pretty sketchy individuals, I guess you can say. And yeah, I was like in high school hanging out with sketchy individuals. I had no business doing none of that. I had no business moving out when I was 15. I had no business hanging out with these sketchy individuals at 15, 16. None of it made sense. But when you're a teenager, you think you know everything and nobody can tell you nothing. And some people like to do the opposite of what they're told anyway. And I'm a Sagittarius. I don't know if that has anything to do with my wandering soul, but I was just like, I mean, I'm old enough. I know what's right from wrong, right? No, I didn't, because I was doing silly things, hanging out with the wrong people, and just completely messing up any of my chances to go to like a good college and do anything other than community college. So I will say though, in high school, I was in ROTC. That was like the only cool thing I think about high school is the ROTC program that they had. Now, I wasn't actually planning on joining the armed forces, but all my friends were in, and the friends that I went to school with, that I hung out with, were not the bad apples that I started hanging out with. Unfortunately, they were from like other places. They were not from my school. I'm not talking about those people, but my friends that were like actual friends in high school that I went to high school with, we were all in ROTC. Most of us chose ROTC so we could bypass gym. That's what I did. That's also why I was in band for junior high school. But ROTC was like the only cool thing about high school, honestly. So just going through the motions, doing our thing, still in a strong little relationship with my little church boo. And at this point, there is a huge effing hurricane coming straight for us. Now, what year was this, you may ask? 2005. So during the Hurricane Katrina, we evacuated from the city we were living in. My great aunt lived in the city, like actually in New Orleans, and she called my daddy up. My daddy was actually down the river fishing, and she called, it was actually my mama, because this was before he had a cell phone, or it was right when he was, I think he had just got a cell phone. And it was through work. I think he just got a cell phone, but nobody really knew the number. So my aunt called, is my great aunt, but she called my mama and she was like, can somebody please come get me, because I can't stay here. I can't stay here. And I'm glad she did, because if we wouldn't have went and got her, I don't like to think about it, but she would have died there. But she called, and I like to think that we would have probably stayed had she not called us and been like, we gotta go, we gotta get out of here, because we've never evacuated for a hurricane before. And to this day, I think there's only been 2 times that we ever evacuated, and Katrina being one, and the other one being Gustav. And I only evacuated with my current husband. He wasn't my husband, he was still my boyfriend. But I evacuated with him to across the lake by his mama and them, because it was a little bit, more inland, a little bit safer than where we reside. But other than that, like, before Katrina, I never evacuated. We rode down every storm. But yeah, my great aunt, my nanny, I was about to say, because we called her nanny, she just, I guess she knew that we needed to get our butts out of there. And we did. We ended up evacuating my family, like my mama and my daddy and my sister, both of my sisters, my sister's 4 youngest kids, Her three oldest kids were in North Carolina at the time. My great aunt, my sister's boyfriend, my big sister's boyfriend. My baby sister didn't have no boyfriend at that time. She was only like 9 years old. Who would have? No, ma'am. Too little. And my boyfriend's family, that was his grandpa, his mama, his daddy stayed. My husband, I didn't even know my husband at this time. My boyfriend back then, let's see. So there was my mama and daddy's car, my boyfriend, my ex-boyfriend. It's so weird talking about people like this. My ex-boyfriend, his car, it was like an Expedition. My dad had a little Saturn L200. It was filled to the brim with people, okay? And then my ex-boyfriend's grandpa had an Expedition. And then while we were leaving, because we kind of teamed up with them, my ex-boyfriend had his grandpa, his mama, him, his little brother, his sister, and I think one of our mutual friends evacuated with us also instead of going with her parent. But that's who all we had in those two vehicles. And while we was evacuating, we stopped. We stopped because something happened. We had to stop 2 times. One time, like a lug nut fell off. Like before we even could get out the city, a lug nut fell off. And it scared us. It was like, oh my goodness. And then probably maybe 20, 30 miles down the road, we stop again. And while we're stopped, some cars pass us that we know. It's my little boyfriend back then, his best friend and their family, which is like 3 other vehicles. And we're jam-packed in these 2 vehicles. We're stopped for some reason. They see us, they stop, and they're like, well, come on, we don't know where we're going. Y'all don't know where you're going. Let's go ahead and convoy. So we ended up having like 5 vehicles, maybe even 6 vehicles. Because when we met up with his best friend, my little ex-boyfriend's best friend, it was him. It was his 3 brothers. Hold on, let me make sure that's right. Yeah, 4 of them all together, I'm pretty sure. His mama, his daddy, and one of his brother's fiance or girlfriend, baby mama, something like that. And then one of their little friends. And his name was Wolf. I just remembered his name was Wolf. Probably wasn't his real name, but if you heard my real name, you'd probably be like, what's your real name though? So I'm not knocking nobody's name, okay? But man, look, it was a traumatic experience, but it was also fun. So we met up with them, and then we ended up going way to what I call baby Texas. I'm sorry. Up north is baby Arkansas. To the west is baby Texas. And the east part of the state is solid. You can't say nothing about it, all right? You can't say nothing about the eastern part of Louisiana. But the western part, that's baby Texas. And the northern part, that's baby Arkansas. Did I say Alabama? I might have said Alabama. I meant Arkansas if I didn't say Arkansas. But anyways, we went to baby Texas. It was a little bitty area. Well, first we went to like Alexandria. And we stayed at like this little church camp thing, and we stayed there for one night. And then the people that like owned it was like, all right, yeah, cool, sorry, we gotta kick y'all out, like y'all can't stay here. We tried to figure out like if there was any way we can accommodate you, but like legally we can't. I don't remember what the situation was, but so after they were like, hey, we just can't accommodate you guys, we were on the road again, and we were traveling even further west and a little bit, I think, more south. We went to a place called Pitkin, which I didn't like that place. I think they were a whole bunch of racists there. That's what I personally think, actually. because not everyone in our group looked exactly like me. Okay, we was a whole mixed pot of people. That's what my family looks like, and that's who we were. That's what we looked like when we was evacuated too. You know, it was just a whole bunch of people from different cultures, different ethnicities, and I can say I didn't like that little town. I thought they were pretty racist, and we stayed there for a night at someone, think it was like my sister's boyfriend's family or something like that, or somebody he knew, his kin, something. And we stayed there for one night though, because we didn't feel welcomed. Oop, my little light just died. Oh my goodness. Well, you can still see me. It just looks a little different, I guess. But we stayed there for just a night. When we left, we deuced out. We did not feel welcomed at all. And we went to another place called Dry Creek. And we were welcomed with open arms to this summer camp area where there was like a tabernacle, and there was a lake, and there's these rooms with bunks in them, and it was able to accommodate a few hundred people, I'm wanting to say, was there. And they were all refugees. They called us refugees. That was so weird. We were all there though, evacuated, because we couldn't go back home. They said, you can't come back home, which was really scary because we had people that was still there that did not come with us for this journey, and we could not get in touch with them. And we were also told we can't go back. So as soon as they were able to let us back in, which was probably like a week after, the news was frightening at that point in time. But we were at this place, and when they allowed us to go back to the city, some people in our group went in the cars, and the majority of us stayed. So the people went back to the city and the surrounding areas where we inhabited, where we lived, and they just basically, one, checked on the people that stayed behind to make sure that everyone was okay, and pick them up, because we weren't just going to leave them there. Oh my gosh, I just remembered. Ooh, we'll get to that in a little bit. Oh my gosh, this needs its own freaking video. It really does. There's so much more that I'm just not talking about because there's so many layers. But they went back. They were picking up people who stayed behind and checking on other people and just making sure that they got any of the valuables that we might need, that they said, you should grab, that we didn't already have. And they was strapped too. Man, I remember thinking, why y'all got guns? But also the news was making it so scary. It was so uncalled for, the way the news was broadcasting things. But it also, the fear mongering was high. It was real high. So a few select people went back. My dad went back, and then I think he stayed because he was on he had I forget what they're called, but it's like when you can go back to work, a permit. He had some sort of a permit. So my dad stayed for a little bit until we figured out when we would be able to get back. But a lot of us were just in this facility awaiting the arrival of people that were left and were getting picked up. Not like buses of people, but just people that the family was already in these places, or like close friends. There was a little bit of room left, so they came back. There was quite a few people who came back. A few of the bandmates, that was my ex-boyfriend's band, and then their parents and everything, and some of their siblings, and lots of animals. We had so many puppies with us, and my great aunt, she had a puppy with her, and the puppy died while we were there, and the church was like, yeah, you can bury the dog over there, and that was sad. The dog's name was Sugar, little Sugar. Oh my goodness, she was a little rat terrier, and she was so cute. I miss Sugar. Oh, that was my aunt, and she lived in the 7th Ward. I used to love going by her house, and it was like this old house. It was a 2-story, and then she moved a little down the way, and it was like one of the 2-story houses where the main floor is actually the top level, and you have stairs to get up there, and the bottom floor is considered like a basement. Even though our basements aren't underground, if you do have a basement, it's the ground floor. But yeah, so we had a lot of animals and a lot of people, and we were just all out there until they said we can come back. So we were eventually able to come back, but not before they put me in school. I had to attend East Beauregard High School. They were so warm and welcoming. Yeah. My boyfriend then went to school like one day, and he's like, yeah, I don't like this. So his grandpa went to like the school board and signed him up for like homeschooling so he didn't have to go again. I was like, what? You were leaving me all alone? Oh, man. I was also smoking cigarettes back then. Very bad for you. But I remember before school, before the school bus would come get us, we would always be sneaking around to try and smoke a cigarette because it was really tough going to this brand new school. It was crazy. So I did have to go to school out there, but we came back. I think it was like September 15th or 16th, somewhere between like the 15th and 20th, I think. Or maybe the 20th and 30th. I don't know. It was a blur. I was like 16 at that time. So anyways, Hurricane Katrina hit. A lot of my school papers and papers of almost everyone at that school, I don't know, like everything got lost. All the stuff that I was doing in class, when I got back to class, when it opened, because our school closed for like 2 months, when I got back to class, they're like, can you tell us what your schedule was so that we can type it all up? And when I told them, they're like, yeah, that's wrong. And I'm like, nah, that's exactly what my schedule was, though. Y'all messed up the first time, and maybe y'all didn't realize it, but that was my classes. That's what I had. They were like, yeah, that's not your classes, but somehow they just ended up letting me keep the classes that I had previously. But it was just a wreck. And then the next year, it was even worse. It was crazier. They put me in buku wrong classes. I was not able to get any kind of reconciliation, so I ended up leaving that high school. So I ended up just leaving that high school, and for a short time, I was just out of school, and I ended up getting a job. It was like a hostessing job, but I was like, I'm just done with that. I will get my GED, and back then it was the GED, and that was the end of my school career. And yeah, it just it was a better fit than being in the school that really was like, I don't know, everything was so messed up. I don't know what a good outcome would have been. Like, would I have just had to take all the classes that I had previously taken again? And if that was the case, I was looking at another like 3 years of school when it shouldn't have been that long. So during high school, I really started spiraling out of control. It mostly all came to a head after the hurricane, but there was a little bit of spiraling afoot a little bit before the hurricane. But yeah, I was definitely spiraling, and a lot of it was from unresolved childhood trauma. And then my boyfriend and I broke up. It was actually mutual. There's a big long story to that, but that's for another time. I long ago did a video about that, and I still have it, but it's no longer anywhere to be found. It's an explicit video, and it has no business being around here. But him and I split up, and then I started dating some random people. They didn't go to my high school. There was 2 people after him and I broke up that I started dating, just like random people, and it was these 2 random people, and neither of them went to my high school. One of them wasn't even in high school anymore. He was like, let's see, graduate. He was probably out of school for like 7 years, so I guess he was like 7 years my senior. But these 2 people, like, I dated them relatively close. And one of the relationships after me and my little high school boyfriend broke up was very short-lived. And then another one was a lot longer, and it was probably more toxic than I realized at that moment, at that point in time. So then I got another job. I was no longer working at that other place. I ended up moving in with my sister and continuing studying for the GED. I was studying for the GED at the time because I was not in school. But I ended up moving in with my big sister, and I stayed with her for a while. I got a new job in the city, and everything was kind of cool. Then I moved in with my cousin, and my cousin got me a job with his kind of like his cousin's cousin or something like that. And I had that job for a very long time. As a matter of fact, that job is where I met my husband at. Okay, so I got my light back in order. So it's all good now. We're all good. So I ended up going and moving out of my cousin's house and moving back in with my mom because my mom's house was closer to my new boyfriend's house. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to go over there so that I can go kiki with him and be able to hang out more frequently. So I moved back in with my mom. I hung out with him a lot. There was a lot of love bombing, Scouts Honor, and yeah, it was just a toxic time. And I refer to that as '07 hippie. And we don't want '07 hippie to ever be invited to the party again. She needs to stay where she's at because that was not cool, man. That was not cool. So I ended up dating this person and completely ignoring my studies. I was not worried about finishing school at that point, and we were together for a while, but then some stuff happened. He was running from the law, and he had to leave the place where we were staying together because I ended up like moving in with him. He ended up having to leave. He ended up having to leave the place he was staying, and we just, yeah, we were like, yeah, this isn't gonna work. So we ended up splitting up. Miraculously, I still had my job. I started focusing on work. I was just going to work a lot, staying at my mom's, and I just kept on the grind. I kept working, and my husband, who at that point in time was just a coworker, you know, we were just getting closer and friendlier, and eventually we started dating. We started dating when I was in my senior year, at the end of my senior year, like when I'm getting ready for graduation. Obviously, all of that had been halted when I was ignoring my studies to be with my little boyfriend. But now at this point, I'm back with my mom and I'm working on work, and then I'm also working on my studies. So it is almost time for me to take the test and get my GED, graduate, whatever you want to call it, but it is almost that time, and I am focusing more towards that. But me and my husband, now we can say, when I moved back in with my mom and started focusing on my work and my studies again, was when the the beginning of the rest of my life started. And that is when me and my boyfriend, aka my husband now, got together. So, I don't know why I said it like that. That's weird. That's when me and my husband started dating. That is when him and I started dating, and we basically were dating. We were still working at that job. We ended up going to do different things for the company that we worked for. We ended up going to different restaurants and opening restaurants together. Not as like a team duo, but like we were like on the opening crew, like the staff of the opening crew. We would go help open restaurants and train the new staff what needed to be done. That was super fun. It really was. But the company that we were working for ended up slowly, they were on a downward decline. They were declining, okay? They were not as popular. It was a food restaurant. They were not as popular as they used to be. It was a buffet. They were not as popular as they used to be, and we opened a lot of restaurants for this company, but then some of those restaurants started to close. So my husband was like, look, I don't like the way, it wasn't my husband yet, it was my boyfriend. My boyfriend at the time was like, I don't like the way things are looking. I'm going to try and find another job. So he started to look for another job. He found another job. It's the job he still works at to this day. And I stayed working at the little restaurant until I found another job. And coincidentally, I just went to the same place he was working. So we didn't work in the same facility. It was another restaurant. We both went to another food service. We're from the food service industry. That's just what we do. We weren't working in the same facility like we had previously done at our other job. But this job was a whole lot more strict on relationships in the workplace. Thank goodness. But we weren't at the same facility. We were at different locations. And he was also higher up, like a manager. And I was just a crew member. So after I followed him to this new job of ours, I found out I was pregnant about a month later. So, yeah. That was a time. I was really nauseous my first pregnancy, and it was really rough. But yeah, so I worked at this job for about a year, and then I ended up getting a promotion. I was going to become a manager, and I had to go train in a city that was roughly 40 minutes away from me. So I drove there every day for, I think it was like 5 weeks of training. So I drove there every day, 5 days a week, and did training for management. When I got back, I was still in the same restaurant that I was a crew member in, only I got promoted, which can be a little tricky to navigate because there's people that you were peers with and now you're over them, as in you now have to command the ship. You have to tell everybody what to do. I don't like telling people what to do. I don't like doing that. So I didn't really like being bossy, but I was the manager, and sometimes I had to put myself in uncomfortable situations to get things done. So a little while after I got back to my restaurant and started jiving with everyone, probably like a year after, actually, I ended up transferring restaurants. I needed an environment that did not have such late hours, because at that point in time, I was working late nights. I ended up having to stay at the restaurant until sometimes 4 o'clock in the morning. And try that with a small child. Like, it's not always the easiest thing to do. So I ended up transferring to another location. This was a mall location, so it was much smaller. There was no drive-through. and it was just a whole lot more laid back. It was a much more laid back environment than what I was previously working on. It was a lot less stressful. And then bada bing, bada boom, shortly after I found out I was pregnant. Maybe it was a little bit longer after than the previous time. But yeah, I ended up getting pregnant again, and I was pregnant during this time of working as manager. And then after I gave birth, I ended up changing my schedule and went down to like 2 days a week. I was like, all right, we're switching things up. I'm not trying to work full time. So I did the 2 or 3 days a week thing for like a year, maybe a year and a half. It was really nice, actually. Everyone bent over backwards. I really appreciate everyone that was involved in my life at that point in time, because everyone bent over backwards to make sure that I had accommodations and that I was able to go pick up my children from school on time, not stay past a certain amount of time, only open, have like a set schedule. These are things that just don't happen in the restaurant industry. It just doesn't. It's almost impossible to do unless you are a crew member. If you're a manager, it's near impossible. But they really bent over backwards to make sure I was able to do everything I needed to do, and I really appreciate that. It was really great. But eventually we decided that I was just going to step down entirely and go home and be a stay-at-home mom. Now, this was after COVID that we decided I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. I did work through the entire pandemic, and actually, because I worked in a mall, our location closed during the pandemic, and they sent us to different locations that were allowed to stay open because they were drive-through restaurants. We didn't have the lobbies open, but we were able to keep it opened because of certain guidelines in place. So it was definitely a time. But a little bit after, I think it was like a year after the height of the pandemic, I ended up stepping down and going home. So my daughter was in public school, but whenever I was able to stay home, we decided that instead of sending her back whenever they go back physically, because they were in virtual classes since the pandemic started until I stopped working, they were in virtual classes. There wasn't school being held in person at that time. And since I was able to quit my job, we decided that when it was time for her to go back to school, we just wouldn't send her and we would do homeschooling instead. So she ended up finishing out her 2nd grade year virtually, but then 3rd grade is when we started to do homeschooling. So the plan for now and for the time being is just homeschooling my 2 kids and me possibly going back to school for early childhood development and maybe some teaching accreditations. But other than that, I really don't have too many plans at this moment. But that is just about everything from my life story. So, yeah, there's some things in there that can definitely be elaborated on, but for now, we'll just leave it at that. So, yeah, that's everything. I am ready for bed. It is late. I am going to see you later. Bye. Yesterday